This is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast. This is VP. We are a solutions-based podcast diving into the world of contrarian investing and alternative finance. You can find us hosted on the No Nonsense Forex YouTube channel, NoNonsenseForex.com, and podcast players everywhere. Episode 209 is brought to us by Bybit. If you recall last week, I said Bybit had a special promotion for those of you who signed up but have not deposited yet. I was wrong. That promotion applies to every new sign-up. What's going on is Bybit is pretty much paying you to trade, and the more you trade, the more they pay you. The whole table is on the blog. You find that blog down below in the show notes. Click it, check it out, and then click my affiliate link at the very bottom of that blog. That is your key to everything. Open up this ecosystem. Take advantage of all the things one of the largest brokers in the world gives you, because with Bybit membership, has its rewards. It is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast, and if you recall last week, I said there was a certain asset class out there that I really loved in terms of buying right now because it's cheap. And if we can, we like to buy things when they are cheap, so I will explain. Now, this past week in the United States, something called the Genius Act just passed in the Senate. And it passed with flying. I don't know if I've seen anything pass like this in a while. It passed 68-30 in the Senate, and it is yet to pass in the House. But if it can pass 68-30 in the old stodgy United States Senate, it is certainly going to pass in the House. We can reasonably assume that. Now, if you haven't been following this, what does the Genius Act do? Well, it allows regulation of U.S. companies to incorporate stablecoins for payments, remittances, settlements, without any fear of regulation coming down on them, like we saw for 4 years during the Biden administration. Now, we knew when this new administration came about that crypto pretty much had the green light, at least in the United States. And this Genius Act has made it official. And you can tell just how many super large companies were ready to jump into this. They just needed that official green light. So during that same week, we saw Amazon, Walmart, Shopify all step up and say, all right, we're in. We will be accepting stablecoins very soon. So pretty much you've taken 90% of all online shopping in the United States and moved them from Web 2 into Web 3. In the history of the blockchain, this will go down as an absolute landmark event. And this has met almost no resistance. I mean, the United States obviously loves stablecoins because stablecoins are the one thing propping up the United States dollar right now. The United States dollar, for the first time since I can remember, is very unloved. And people are moving capital elsewhere. And this is obviously very unsettling to the brass in the United States who wants to keep the dollar the reserve currency. And I said before, the Trump administration does want a lower dollar, but they don't want people to completely lose faith in it. And if you didn't know, if you issue a stablecoin, that stablecoin has to be backed by a dollar in some way. So the stablecoin issuers buy a ton of United States treasuries at a time where very few people are actually doing that. Now, along the way here, not everybody has been super happy with this, which is odd. You think pretty much everybody in the crypto space should be absolutely delighted with the way things are going. But I've seen some pretty hardcore libertarians not so happy with the idea that government and banks are now pretty much walking hand in hand with the crypto space. And to them, I say what I often say to libertarians. And really, being one myself, there's different types, I guess. I don't think I fall into a certain category here. But you'll see, my problem with libertarians has always been this, and I've said this in the past, is way too many of them are all or nothing. And that's why they never get what they want. They need to live in reality. And in reality, you need to make compromises. You need to meet in the middle somewhere. It's still a win. It's a huge win. What's the alternative, really? sit there and fight governments and banks the rest of your life? I mean, you know how miserable that is? You're having final boss battles every single day. Who wants that? You're not really going to win, ever. This here, by getting them on board, by making the enemy our friend, is how we win. And this is a huge win for the blockchain space. A huge win. A giant win. I don't think I can even express how big of a win this is, contrarians. I mean, it may have been a foregone conclusion at the end of the day, but it still had to happen, and it finally did. One reason is kind of the obvious. Other nations are going to see this, and they are going to follow suit, because those nations are not going to want to get left behind. You pretty much at this point have most of the world on board. Europe is lagging behind heavily, as they always do when it comes to technology. But the rest of the world seems very much on board. So much to the point to where I heard this week, I can't remember who said it, but it was really interesting. You're going to see entire countries and entire cultures leapfrog technology to where they don't just go from one era to another. They skip an entire era. Like for example, in Africa, there are more cell phones than there are landlines currently. They jumped right over the landline technology right into the cell phone era. And you're going to see this in many countries and many regions of the world to where they just skip over the banking era and go straight to digital. You've already seen this in certain areas, but it's tough. If you don't have that bank middleman, you are fairly limited in what you can do. But now that the banks are working with you with these stable coins in hand, and all of these payment processors are doing the same as well, now it's totally different. The landscape is changing, and it's changing really fast. And it's all thanks to these stable coins. This is going to be big for DeFi. This is going to be really big for tokenized assets. We all said there was going to be a day where you could have like the deed to a house and deeds to property and artwork be tokenized on the blockchain. And this is a really big step towards that. You don't just jump from point A to point B when it comes to tokenizing a piece of artwork. You do need something in the middle. There's an ecosystem that needs to be at play here. And these stable coins are going to be at the heart of that ecosystem. But when it comes to the theme of this podcast episode, where am I going with this? I mean, I feel like it should be obvious, but if you haven't caught up yet, these stable coins all need to run on rails. All right, they don't have their own. Even JP Morgan, who we thought was going to have their own layer one, they're running on Base. So when I say how big this is going to be for DeFi and for tokenized assets and for the rails these stablecoins run on, what is super cheap right now? Altcoins. They're incredibly cheap because they have been very unloved as of late. The world has just gone crazy over Bitcoin, and that's all anybody wants to talk about. And then when you have worrisome things going on in the world, you might see Bitcoin dump a little bit, but altcoins will dump a lot more. And you guys know, if you know me at all, that I love when things like this happen. I don't like when bad things happen in the world, but I like when altcoins react to it the way they do. This is a unique and wonderful phenomenon that you really don't see in, I can't think of any sector that dumps for no reason the way altcoins do. Now, I understand why they're dumping. And this, again, this is where we have a very distinct advantage. And that's why I want to make a dedicated episode to this. The crypto space, especially once you get past Bitcoin now, is just full of very unsophisticated investors who need liquidity and who freak out when they shouldn't. And they play right into our hands over and over again every time. I dread the day when this phenomenon goes away. I hope it never does, because all they do is give us amazing prices on the assets we love. and we're super bullish on for the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, like I said before, so many people are talking about Bitcoin. Like, you would think there's this paradigm shift going on to where like blockchain's not even going to happen anymore in these people's eyes. You're actually seeing some pretty respected podcasters and YouTubers out there really migrate their sentiment over to Bitcoin to where you would think they're becoming maxis almost. And this is exactly what I want to see. Like, this is juicy. I remember, if you guys might remember this too, when Rick Rule was talking about the uranium space. This was fairly recent. We just had a drop in the price of uranium stocks. And he got on in an interview and said, I just got done seeing several people on social media with the word uranium in their social media handle get up and say that they've had it and they're dumping all of their stock. And some people even changed their name on social media from uranium whatever to something else. He said if there was ever time to buy, it is right now. And he was like maybe 2 days away from the absolute bottom when he said that. So again, you have young, inexperienced, dumb investors dumping at the absolute wrong time. And then the rich, patient billionaire swoops right in, as they always do, and gobbles up those nice low prices. And this is exactly what I would like to do. This is exactly what we should be doing every time. We should be the rich, fat billionaire. Because no matter how much money you have, you can still invest this way, and God damn it, you should be. If we have learned anything, that it really has been the key to our success. To be active in a market full of very dumb, inexperienced investors and play that market like an intelligent investor is supposed to. Because unlike areas like stocks and commodities, for example, there's so little competition here. And the people who are in this space just keep making the same dumb mistakes over and over again. I guarantee you there's so many investors out there that have probably just given up on blockchain and think Bitcoin is it. When bills like the Genius Act, which just passed this week, are an absolute testament to the fact that blockchain not only isn't going anywhere, it is the future of everything. Yet the world is selling. It's bananas. If you remember last week's episode, I told you that the 4 things you are going to need to prepare yourself for the world ahead and to protect yourself from a fiat currency that is collapsing at an alarming rate, way more than I ever thought it was, is going to be gold, Bitcoin, assets, and options. And when it comes to assets, I don't mean your home, because unless you have paid it off or bought it cash, like Robert Kiyosaki said, I said this in the comments section, when somebody asked if their house was in fact an asset or not, Robert Kiyosaki said, your house is not your biggest asset. It is your bank's biggest asset. And that's very true in many ways. When we're referring to assets, we mean things like stocks. And really, you could throw gold and Bitcoin into that category, but I like to separate this from gold and Bitcoin. But if you hold altcoins, and you hold the altcoins that we like to hold here, which is going to be the larger cap altcoins, those are absolutely assets just like stocks are. They're no different at this point. They are just on the blockchain, and they are blockchain companies. And if blockchain really is the future, which it now so obviously is, if you're holding things for the future, you want as much exposure to this new world as you're going to get. Think about that, contrarians. The future of payments and banking and almost everything that's going to affect our lives is just constantly on sale and constantly gives us low prices we can take advantage of over and over again. Because like I said before, for some reason, if war breaks out in the world somewhere, altcoins will almost certainly dump. Now, if somebody would like to explain to me the correlation between Israel and Iran going to war and the price of Chainlink going down, I am all ears, but what I can pretty much tell you is people are just simply de-risking at this point. Because in the altcoin space, those people just simply have less money than you're going to find your average stock investor have. But it makes no sense. The price of Chainlink should not be going down because of the war, because Chainlink has nothing to do with it. And when we see the price of certain assets go down for absolutely no good rational reason, what do we call that here on the show, contrarians? We have our own word for it. We have our own phrase. You should know it. Sweet divergence. And every time I have said this phrase out loud on the show, I have bought, and I cannot think of the last time I regretted it. But just remember, it's going to suck when you do it. It's supposed to suck. Sentiment is supposed to be low. Even people you listen to on social media who you respect are probably either just not talking about it at all or talking poorly about it. So even people like us, who should be getting really excited about these prices, are going to be second-guessing ourselves. But that's how you know this market is juicy. Now, if you're new or if you're unfamiliar, if you go to nononsenseforex.com/blog, or if you just go to the website itself and go to the search bar and type in portfolio, you will see all of the tokens I hold and a quick description of why I hold them. But we believe there is plenty, like lots and lots of upside in the less risky tokens on the board. Tokens that we already know are going to play a relatively significant role in the future of everything. So there's no need to go super far down the risk curve if you don't want to. I really don't want to. I feel like I have all the upside I'll ever want in the tokens I hold right now. Now, I'll leave you with one more stat before we part this week. If you were ever really wondering if these things have caught on with the rest of the world, for what it's worth, Ethereum is now officially the company who has had the most money invested in it in its first 10 years of existence. It has drawn in the most money ever by a company in the first 10 years of its existence. And these things are on sale. You want to get that asset portfolio up? If you feel like you had a bit of a late start to the game here, and you're not comfortable with the amount of assets you have going forward, this here, what's going on right now, is how you close that gap. And you guys know, we say it all the time at the end of the show. You need to buy when it seems crazy to buy. And right now, everybody is doing nothing but talking about Bitcoin. Altcoins are getting no shine. And it feels crazy to take your hard-earned money and put it into this space. Now, this is not financial advice. You guys know it never is. But you've seen me do this on the show many times, and you have probably done this yourself many times, so you already know that the correct answer every time is to make these investments when it seems and feels crazy to do so. Because at the end of the day, you know that you're not crazy. You're just early.